Imagine walking down a dimly lit street, your footsteps echoing against the cold pavement. In the silence between each step, you recall a chilling tale you once heard, a story from a friend of a friend, passed along in hushed, urgent tones. In that moment, you feel the pulse of an urban legend, a narrative born in the shadows of our everyday world, blurring the fragile line between what is real and we only fear to be. Urban legends are the folklore of the modern age. They are stories that travel with the speed of a whisper, gaining new, terrifying details with each retelling. But what are their origins, and why do they hold such a powerful grip on our collective imagination? To find the answer, we must journey to a time before the internet, before viral challenges and social media feeds. In the past, these tales traveled organically, person to person, shared around campfires or during late-night sleepovers. Each storyteller, consciously or not, would add their own unique flair, twisting a detail here, sharpening a fear there, making the story feel more immediate, more plausible. The roots of these legends dig deep into our shared psychology. As a species, we are wired for narrative, especially for stories that provoke a powerful emotional response: fear, wonder, and profound unease. These tales often function as modern-day cautionary fables, warning us of the dangers that lurk just beneath the surface of our civilized world. Take the classic legend of The Hook. It tells of a young couple parked on a secluded lover's lane, their romantic evening shattered by a radio bulletin about an escaped killer with a hook for a hand. The tension builds until they flee, only to later discover a bloody hook dangling from their car's door handle. This story, like so many others, preys upon our most primal anxieties, the fear of the stranger, our own vulnerability, and the terrifying power of the unknown. Urban legends are also a mirror, reflecting the cultural anxieties of their time. During the 1980s, a wave of panic swept across the United States, fueled by stories of poisoned Halloween candy and razor blades hidden inside apples. Though verifiable cases were almost non-existent, the legend spread like a contagion, driven by media reports and the deep-seated fears of parents. This collective dread led to real-world consequences, from X-raying candy at hospitals to fundamentally changing how communities celebrated Halloween. Here, the urban legend became a vessel through which society could process new and frightening threats, no matter how improbable. Another vital component is what folklorists call the friend of a friend phenomenon. The terrifying event rarely happens to the narrator. Instead, it is always attributed to someone just one step removed from their social circle. This narrative device provides a perfect, almost untraceable balance of plausibility and mystery. The story feels real enough to be true, yet distant enough to be impossible to verify, encouraging us to pass the chilling tale along. Sometimes, these legends are born from a kernel of truth, a real event that becomes distorted and magnified through countless retellings until fact and fiction are inseparable. Consider the enduring myth of alligators living in the New York City sewers. The story began with a few isolated, factual reports of pet alligators being flushed down toilets in the early 20th century. But over decades, this simple truth mutated into a grand subterranean horror story of massive, sightless reptiles breeding in the darkness beneath the city. The legend persists not because of evidence, but because it taps into our fear of the unseen world that exists just below our feet. Ultimately, urban legends are born and thrive in the twilight spaces of our world, where uncertainty, fear, and a deep-seated curiosity intersect. They are our modern myths, constantly evolving, revealing as much about our own minds as they do about the monsters they describe. Imagine a chilly night in a quiet Japanese suburb. The streets are empty. Long shadows stretch from beneath the dim streetlights, and a soft wind whispers through the skeletal branches of the trees. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the gloom. A woman, her face obscured by a surgical mask, her long, dark hair gleaming. She approaches you, and in a chillingly polite voice, she asks a simple question. "Am I pretty?" This is the terrifying opening to one of Japan's most famous and frightening urban legends, the Kuchisake-Onna, the slit-mouthed woman. The legend's origins are ancient, with some folklorists tracing its earliest forms back to Japan's Edo period, which began in the early 17th century. In an era rich with kaidan, or ghost stories, tales of vengeful female spirits were a common and terrifying staple. However, the modern incarnation of the slit-mouthed woman exploded into the public consciousness in the late 1970s. A wave of alleged sightings and rampant rumors swept across Japan, igniting a genuine panic in schoolyards and creating a nationwide media frenzy. According to the most widely told version of her tale, the slit-mouthed woman was once a beautiful but unfaithful wife of a samurai. In a fit of jealous rage, her husband discovered her infidelity and enacted a horrific punishment. He took his sword and slit her mouth from ear to ear, leaving her with a grotesque, permanent grin. As she bled, he taunted her, sneering, "Who will think you are beautiful now?" Her spirit, unable to rest and consumed by a burning rage, is now said to wander the dark streets of Japan, her mutilated face hidden behind a mask, forever seeking a twisted form of validation. This tragic origin is just one of many. Other versions claim she was the victim of a failed medical procedure, or that her disfigurement was the result of a horrific car accident. But regardless of her backstory, her method remains terrifyingly consistent. She appears before a lone traveler, often a child, and poses her question, "Am I pretty?" If you answer no, she kills you instantly with a pair of long, sharp scissors. If you answer yes, she peels away her mask to reveal her mutilated face and asks again. If you scream or say no, you suffer the same fate. And if you force yourself to say yes a second time, she will take her scissors and slice your own mouth from ear to ear, so that you may share in her beautiful deformity. During the panic of the late 1970s, the fear of Kuchisake-Onna was palpable. Some schools instructed children to walk home only in large groups, and teachers began escorting their students. Police departments increased patrols in response to the public outcry, while news reports fanned the flames of hysteria. The stories spread like wildfire, with children whispering about her latest supposed location. Desperate for a defense, they also created their own folklore, a set of counters to her deadly game. Answering her question with, "You're average," might confuse her long enough for you to escape. Others claimed throwing hard candy or fruit at her feet would distract her, giving you a precious few seconds to run for your life. The legend of the slit-mouthed woman continues to evolve, a chilling fusion of ancient fears and modern anxieties. Her image, a haunting blend of beauty, horror, and profound tragedy, stalks not just the city streets, but the collective consciousness of a nation. Through countless retellings, Kuchisake-Onna has become far more than a simple ghost story. She is a powerful symbol of how folklore can transform our deepest fears into an unforgettable, living nightmare. A story is not a stone, dropped once and left to lie. It is a ripple, expanding outward, its shape changing with every surface it touches. The tale of the slit-mouthed woman was no exception. It began, as most legends do, with a single, breathless account. Perhaps it was a frightened child racing home after dusk, their eyes wide with terror, recounting what they saw, or thought they saw, at the edge of a park. That first story, laced with a potent mix of fear and morbid excitement, was whispered to a parent, who in turn shared it with a neighbor. And so the warning began its journey. In the close-knit communities of Japan, information moved through the spaces between people. Before the age of instant communication, stories traveled along the grapevine, over garden fences, in grocery store aisles, and during late-night phone calls. A simple, loaded question might be overheard. "Did you hear what happened to the Tanaka boy?" That question would ignite a chain reaction. Suddenly, everyone had heard something, though the details were a chaotic patchwork of truth, rumor, and pure imagination. As the tale spread, it began to mutate. Each retelling added a new, terrifying flourish. The scissors she carried grew longer, her speed became supernatural, the warning more dire. A child who hadn't been there might claim they had seen her too, a fleeting shadow, a chill in the air where there should have been none. The story became a living entity, evolving with each telling, shaped by the anxieties of those who passed it on. Local newspapers and radio stations, sensing a story that gripped the public, began to report on the phenomenon. "Mysterious woman terrorizes school children," a headline might read, lending the whispers an air of official authority. The warming, once a private fear, was now a public panic. Parents began to keep their children indoors after dark. Doors were locked earlier. Even those who openly scoffed at the story found themselves glancing over their shoulders on a lonely walk home. The line between rumor and reality had all but vanished, and the community's collective imagination rushed in to fill the void. What's fascinating is how these whispered warnings didn't just spread fear, they also forged a strange kind of unity. Neighbors checked in on one another, parents formed walking groups to escort children from school, and theories were shared and debated with a feverish intensity. The story became a part of the local identity, a shared secret that both terrified and bound the community together. In the end, the way the tale of the slit-mouthed woman spread was just as important as the legend itself. It lived on, not because of what actually happened, but because of how people told and retold her story, each whisper carrying her shadow a little further, a little deeper into the heart of a nation. Imagine a quiet evening suddenly shattered by a voice from a radio, a voice describing an alien invasion with such realism that the world outside your window no longer feels safe. Throughout history, the fragile boundary between story and reality has collapsed, unleashing waves of mass panic where collective fear takes on a life of its own. One of the most infamous examples took place in 1938 with Orson Welles' radio broadcast of The War of the Worlds. Despite being introduced as a work of fiction, the play's format, a series of simulated news bulletins, was so convincing that thousands of listeners believed Martians were genuinely invading New Jersey. Panic erupted across the country. Phone lines were jammed with frantic calls. Highways became clogged with families attempting to flee. The incident became a stark lesson in the power of mass media to transform fiction into a terrifying, tangible reality overnight. But it isn't just fictional aliens that have sparked such terror. In 1954, the small town of Mattoon, Illinois, was gripped by the mad gasser panic. It began with a few residents reporting a strange, sickly sweet odor at night, followed by symptoms of nausea and temporary paralysis. The reports multiplied rapidly, and soon the entire community was convinced that a mysterious assailant was prowling their streets, spraying a poisonous gas into homes. Police launched a massive manhunt, but no culprit and no physical evidence of any gas was ever found. Psychologists now believe it was a case of mass hysteria, where shared anxiety and the power of suggestion caused symptoms to spread through the community like a virus. A decade later, an even stranger episode unfolded in West Virginia. In 1966, the first sighting of the Mothman was reported, a towering winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. Over the next year, dozens more people claimed to see the creature, each encounter accompanied by an overwhelming sense of dread. The sightings culminated in a real-world tragedy, the collapse of the Silver Bridge in 1967, which claimed the lives of 46 people. In the minds of many locals, the creature's appearance and the disaster were forever linked, the Mothman becoming an omen of doom, a legend forged in tragedy. These events are not isolated anomalies. They reveal a fundamental aspect of human psychology. When faced with the unexplained, our minds instinctively search for a narrative, often leaping to the most sinister conclusions. Fear, when amplified by rumor and shared anxiety, can become a palpable force capable of shaping behavior on a massive scale. In 1692, the whispers of witchcraft in Salem, Massachusetts, spiraled into deadly accusations and trials. And in the 1980s, the Satanic Panic swept America, with baseless claims of ritual abuse leading to ruined lives and wrongful convictions. What unites these stories is the raw power of belief and the contagious nature of fear. In each case, a single spark, a radio broadcast, a strange smell, a shadowy figure, ignited a fire of collective anxiety that transformed suspicion into absolute panic. Whether real or imagined, these encounters serve as a chilling reminder of how easily our deepest fears can be made flesh. What is it that allows a legend to achieve immortality? Why does the Slit-Mouthed woman continue to haunt our imagination decades after the initial panic has faded? The answer lies in the anatomy of the legend itself, the elements that make it so persistently terrifying and so impossible to forget. At its heart, the legend of Kuchisake-Onna thrives on ambiguity. The terror is not just in what we see, but in what is hidden from us. Her surgical mask is a perfect narrative device, concealing the horror beneath and forcing our own minds to imagine the worst. This uncertainty is the engine of fear. The story offers no easy answers, only a series of terrifying choices, each leading to a gruesome end. Our imagination runs wild, filling in the blanks with our own deepest anxieties. The legend's power is also rooted in its setting. Kuchisake-Onna is not haunt a distant, crumbling castle. She walks the same familiar streets we do. The quiet residential lane, the underpass on the way home from school, the empty parking garage at night. By placing this supernatural terror in our everyday world, the legend dissolves the barrier between the safe and the unknown. The monster is no longer out there. She could be waiting just around the next corner. Psychologically, the tale masterfully exploits our primal fears, the fear of disfigurement, the fear of a stranger's intent, and the paralyzing fear of a situation with no escape. Her question, "Am I pretty?" is a social trap playing on our ingrained desire to be polite while simultaneously presenting a life or death dilemma. It taps into universal anxieties about appearance, judgment, and the violent consequences of giving the wrong answer. Her influence is not confined to word of mouth. The slit-mouthed woman has become a fixture in popular culture, a testament to her enduring power. She has been the subject of countless films, manga, and anime, each reinterpreting her story for a new generation. The 2007 film, Carved, the Slit-Mouthed Woman, brought her to a global audience, blending the urban legend with visceral psychological horror. She appears in video games as a terrifying enemy and inspires artists and writers who see her as a symbol of repressed female rage or societal trauma. But perhaps the greatest testament to her legacy is her ability to evolve. The legend adapts to the anxieties of the current moment. Her surgical mask, once merely a way to hide her scars, took on an eerie new resonance in a world accustomed to face coverings. During the global pandemic, a dark joke circulated that everyone had become Kuchisake-Onna, blurring the line between ancient folklore and modern reality. In this way, she remains eternally relevant, a shape-shifting specter reflecting the fears of each new era. Ultimately, the legend of the slit-mouthed woman endures because she is more than just a ghost. She is a mirror. Her story, told and retold, reflects our anxieties about beauty, our fear of violence, and the terrifying knowledge that a single moment can irrevocably shatter a life. Legends like hers never truly die. They linger in the shadows of our minds, a chilling whisper that reminds us that some questions should never be answered.